Hey, it's still light out, so I'll say good afternoon, everybody.
Sounds like me.
It's 5 o'clock on Thursday, February 22nd. Happy birthday, George Washington.
Yes.
The original and first birthday.
The old days.
That's from the old days, that's right, exactly. This is the monthly meeting of the Bristol County Water Authority. And the first item on the agenda is called to order. The second item is public input. I don't recognize anybody here who is from the general public. So unless somebody comes running through the door.
I said in a few months I'll sit over there.
Oh.
For now I'm over here.
Okay.
You'll forgive us.
All right. The next item on the agenda is approval of minutes. We have 2 minutes, one from the public hearing last month and one from the board meeting on January 23rd also. Do I have a motion on approval of minutes for the public hearing?
Move to approve.
Second. Any discussion of the minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor of the minutes from the public hearing say aye.
Aye.
Or any opposed? It's unanimous. We now have the minutes for the meeting, the board meeting from January 23rd to be approved.
Move to approve.
We have a
Second.
motion. We have a second. All those, any discussion? Any corrections? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Also unanimous. We now turn to the executive director's report. Mr.
All
Kuchar.
right, Tucker Pipeline Project, Phase 1 project has been formally closed out with CB Utility with a savings of a little over $1 million on that contract. Phase 2, Beta continues to advance the plans to the 60% design phase. We hope that we should be getting those plans in the near future. Part of that, though, we've had some fruitful discussions with private property owners, which are all small businesses along Waterman Avenue, which requires some private property and easements, and those discussions have been positive, so they can advance the design in that area. Very challenging area there on Waterman Avenue as the pipeline comes out from the I-195 corridor and then comes back up onto Waterman Avenue. The number of utilities within that corridor were just super challenging to the point where we had to move the pipeline off the roadway onto neighboring properties. So, but those discussions have continued, and they've been, the property owners have been receptive to the project so far. So to the point they can at least advance the design. The geotech investigation work that was initially postponed back in mid-December due to the Washington Bridge closure, that work did take place just a couple of weeks ago, the week of February 12th, which is good, so they can start to work on the utility bridge design for that crossing. We're still waiting to hear back from DOH. It's been a few weeks since they sent an email and a comment letter, so we'll nudge them again. Hopefully we'll get that soon. The Tucker agreement, we did get that back from them. We're reviewing it internally here, then we will forward over to Sadie Mack to get her input. Nothing too earth-shattering with respect to some of their comments back, but hopefully we will get that resolved shortly as well.
They've had that for a while.
They did that for a while. He had to get approval to have hire an independent attorney. So it took some time, I think, on his end, and then get his attorney's comments, I guess, again, it took some time.
Do you know who that attorney is?
Rich Cohen from Burns and Levinson. We received the actual materials, the canopy structure, and then we'll be scheduling for the installation of that with the contractor unless the weather improves. Meanwhile, though, staff has been starting to clear out the old plant, moving materials and whatnot to the storage containers that we have on site to prepare the plant for demolition. And then we also have later in the agenda a task order amendment for PAR to prepare the specifications and, for the demo for that. The dam removal project continues. No work on the upper dam, as noted, until after May 1st due to regulatory time of year restrictions. The lower dam work continues. The dam, as you see, is down. They continue to dredge the channel to get it down to the level that it needs to be, below the surface of the water. We did have to reach out to some of the regulatory agencies, notably DEM and U.S. Army Corps, because the in-water work initially was supposed to end February 1. Our consulting engineers did reach out to them, and we had to make an argument to extend that until May 1st. So that was positive news on that front, so the contractor could continue to work. Continue to seek out some additional funds to hopefully we can make this completely a grant-funded project. We're just a few $100,000 shy, actually, so we did prepare and submit another grant round that DEM offers, so that's in play. Down to 10 meters remain to be changed out, and I think once we get to the warmer weather, we can be a little more aggressive with respect to those final customers close out that project. Water purchases, graphs are provided. Very typical for this time of year. And for the year, we just remain just a little under the prior 5-year average. We've been really busy this past month coordinating our lead service line replacement program. The staff do a great job working together, putting this together, program together, getting everybody on the same page. We have 130 letters. They'll be sent certified. They have not been sent yet. They will be sent either tomorrow or early next week. And I provided all that information to you as well. It's a lot of information for a customer to handle. We anticipate, getting a number of phone calls. But this information is required by state law and federal law to be given to customers who have been identified as having a lead service line. And as I had laid out previously, this program is going to be tied together with our water rehab project, which is currently out to bid. We have a capital improvement project summary table. Projects are in good shape as far as financing and funding goes. Anybody have any questions?
For the lead service line replacement program, those 103 letters, is that just like across the authority, or is it like a certain area that?
No, it's only for those customers that have been identified. So that have a lead service line.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are they mostly in one area, or is it?
No, it's across the
It's across the board. Okay.
So this first round is 130 customers have been identified for this phase for this year.
Is there a timetable on the replacements from the state?
From the state?
Yeah, once you notify, is there a timetable to get it done?
The state's program is 10 years from October 2024.
And that's what you're mandated to,
But we're hopefully going to be, you know, pretty much done on the public side this year.
yeah.
We should be ahead of the game.
Okay. Way ahead.
Yeah,
I would say so.
No report from Sue, he's only got a month to report.
We're keeping Sue very busy here in our rainy days.
She's got the Easter decorations up.
How's the corned beef and cabbage coming already?
One reason cabbages come fine. Buy your tickets.
Mike?
So not much too else to add, not much. Have a bunch of pictures if anyone has any questions on those, but in general, along with the water mains, we're still doing focus, this time of year we like to focus on a lot of inside improvements. So keeping the pump stations not only operational, but like things like flooring, as they age out from just wear and tear of working in the space. We like to keep those, really in good quality condition. And then also, strong initiative that we've been trying to keep going is training. Recently, we had McWayne Ductil in for all of our operations staff to cover their product lines. This is going back a few weeks prior to this. We also had Tyler Union, who makes fittings. And we try to incorporate this into our year periodically, just to reinforce and keep the guys up to speed with what the manufacturer looks for in their product, the utilization of their products from both the operation, installation, and maintenance perspective. So these technical type trainings, along with the safety programs that we run throughout the year, are really well received by the guys, and this was another example of how we incorporate it. Otherwise, that is the leak where they're encapsulating it. That was the leak, Bob, you asked about on Medicom.
Yep.
Just a little guy, squirting out, but ends up making a mess when they leak for a little time.
So it just encapsulated it?
Yeah, we've had good luck with those. So Medicom is a long stretch, that 12-inch pipe, it's pretty big. So conventional repair for something like that would have been cut out that bell, and then it would take quite a few hours to actually drain all the water out. So you could put the components back together. This saves, and then obviously the customers associated with that one would be out of service. So this saves the shutdown, the depressurization, dewatering, and it maintains the structural integrity of the pipeline within there. So yeah, we've been wrapping quite a few.
It was done overnight, wasn't it?
Oh, we did that during the day.
Oh, you did it. I missed it.
Yep. A quick little pothole, because that is the first challenge. So water comes up, the ground moves or what have you, and the water may not come right up where it is. First challenge is to try to dig directly on the failure. And that's done through digital methods, acoustic methods, and they were fortunate to dig right on this belt, clean it up, get it wrapped up, and get it patched.
Now, how do you find the break to begin with? Basic question.
Usually through water surfacing is the immediate. Somebody will call, they'll see water on the road. We do have pressure sensors throughout the system, so if there's a line that's not surfacing, we can pick up on leaks through either partial depressurization, so we're seeing pressures that are off, or pump run times. So we have had some pretty good leaks that don't surface. They're finding their way right into a sewer, right into a drain, but we know there's water not going in the right spot because the pump is like running twice as long. You know, we rely on trends to kind of tell us how the system is going. So if it deviates from that long-term trend, we know something might be awry.
Thank you.
But a lot of times, it's just a resident calling and saying, hey, there's a puddle here, but it hasn't rained in like a week.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that yields a lot of pumped-out basement calls.
Yeah.
Right. So the guys are good at discerning what is the groundwater and what is our water.
Now, is this the first time we've used this encapsulation process?
No, we've actually been using these for quite a few years, and on the second, I guess, failure of the East Bay pipeline, I actually had one custom made to fit across a flange joint that we found once we reactivated that line after the slip line when we did the internal acoustic leak detection throughout the 7 miles of it. We found a small leak, pretty similar in size, that we wrapped up. That was much bigger, but same idea. Save on the depressurization, keep the pipeline pressurized, and keep everything in service, but address the deficiency.
Thanks.
See, on the, you did the HVAC at the pump station, you have the power drops in there now from,
Yes,
Is
so
that
they're
all- that's all
doing the commissioning, so the building is on utility power.
okay.
They've got the HVAC started up. We were in the process this week of doing the generator. Generator ran, but it didn't pass the QAQC to do a full load bank test, which is the next process. So, but it did start up. Gas is going to it. So we have utility power, utility gas, and we are on the new normal heating system for the building.
A lot of activity over there today. What's going on?
Chipping away. So we're also doing some improvements to the tank. So we're putting a new. That was the beginnings of a new conduit chase going up the side of the tank. So that will house our cabling, antenna cables, instrument cables, and it'll be the home for the new the police and fire radio communication cable. So we put some magnets up with some unistrut, and it'll make it nice, neat, and consolidated going up the side of the tank.
Do you have everything you need from the cops? 'Cause I'd like to go back the other way, you know, they're always coming at you.
Yeah, they were gonna really refine the sizing of the cable, but we just went a little bit bigger on the unistrut, so there's plenty of room. Even if they came at us with like a 3-inch cable or something, there's plenty of room. But otherwise, no, we just gotta finish up, clean out that generator room so then they can put their equipment in, so.
All right.
Good. Susan?
The main thing to report is just on our 2024 distribution system project. As I mentioned last month, we're combining our water main rehabilitation project with this lead service line replacement project, so it's one combined project. We went out to bid. It's a cleaning and lining project, so there are only certain contractors that are able to do this type of work. But of the 3 main players in this area, all 3 came to our pre-bid meeting, so that's a good sign. I'm not sure if they will all put in bids, but at least they're all came to the pre-bid. I've received questions actually from all of them, so I'm going to be issuing an addendum, and the bid opening is in a few weeks, so we're expecting that hopefully to be within budget. And next month when I'm here, I will be presenting or requesting an award of that contract. So hopefully that all goes well. And then I just noted that it's science fair time again, and the science fair, the state science fair is on March 16th at CCRI again. And BCWA usually gives out awards to the kids that do drinking water projects that are from East Bay. So we'll continue with that. If anybody on the board would like to be a judge let me know. It's on a Saturday, goes from 11 in the morning till 2 p.m. about. And it's usually not that many, once we whittle down East Bay and we whittle down drinking water, they're not a lot. But the schools in Bristol County, there are several that still do science fair. Mount Hope High does, Barrington High does, Barrington Middle School, Mount Carmel. So there's still several schools that continue to participate in science fair. So we don't know yet what the list of projects are, but we're anticipating there'll be some drinking water projects.
So, so when you went to the science fair in the past, were you only judging the East Bay water projects, or are you judging all of the?
So I'm also part of Rhode Island Waterworks Association, and they give awards to drinking water projects for anybody in the whole state. So we're kind of a subset of that bigger project. So usually I was kind of judging for both. But yes, the BCWA award is for a student who goes to school in Bristol County or is from Bristol County. So we often check the kids from Hendricken and Bayview to see if they live in the East Bay, and include them in the judging, and then, of course, all the schools that are in the East Bay.
But you won't be going this year, right?
I have another commitment that day, corned beef and cabbage.
How much are the tickets?
I'll talk to you later. So no, but we do still have colleagues from Rhode Island Waterworks who will be there judging. So we will, it's possible to judge from afar using those scores, but
As somebody who's participated in this in the past, it is a pretty fascinating event to sit and talk with high school students who all of a sudden put you in your place intellectually. It's just amazing. Sometimes you have no idea what these kids are talking about. Not that they're not able to communicate, it's just that I'm not able to receive information at that level. Some of them are very detailed, some of them are very basic, and all of them are very surprising and show great promise for
I noticed
the
in
kids today.
the Bristol newspaper that the girl that won the top prize for Mount Hope High School did a project on getting PFAS out of water, which is the forever chemicals that's in the news a lot now. And so I'm sure it was very complicated technically. I didn't go to judge her this year, but
Yes. So Lauren and I were judges at the Mount Hope Science Fair, and I have to say that I was very impressed with the level of projects that these kids did. Yeah, they did an excellent job.
and I always enjoy the junior projects even more because those kids are just so excited and very enthusiastic and love to and just want to talk about their.
And there were several on water-related projects. That PFAS project was one.
So I know that girl will be at the state fair
Right.
because she was the top winner.
Thank you.
Anyway,
Moving on to the money side of things. Dan?
Did we, I was looking at the IT thing, and you see today that everybody's phone went dead and so on and so forth.
Not mine.
Not mine.
Not mine.
Okay.
AT&T.
So-
Sales are down.
Get a flip phone.
Mine didn't go dead. I'm referring to, did any impact here at the water?
Yep.
What service do you guys use for phones and all that?
I don't know.
we used to
We're actually AT&T.
But you didn't
But we're
separate it?
part of their first step package,
Yeah.
so we're supposed to have priority service in these instances of outages. But we didn't experience it. But I did see the headlines. I don't know where the outage was, but.
No, I don't know if they've got it back online from the news this afternoon, but it was like, nobody knows where it happened, what it was, and of course, the finger pointing was started as far as
Oh.
visit Russia or the Chinese or.
How long was that for?
They went out at 3 this morning and that, they just got it back online like this afternoon.
And who's service?
2:30 or so, I go in there.
18.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's what, it's a lot of places that suffer with it. But they've had like 911 systems went
Yeah, so
down.
it could be
things
right.
It's
like that.
mostly the cell phone network that
Yeah.
most of the outage was.
Yeah,
We're good.
yeah, good.
Get your string out, your Campbell soup.
Get some of those ice moves.
Right. That's why I still have my landline at home.
Me too.
Any other questions? Comments?
Thank you.
Dan?
All right. Get ready to go to page 4. We have January versus January. These months look crazy sometimes. It was timing. I mean, revenue was way up versus last January, but obviously that's just timing. The expenses were a little bit higher than last January. Again, timing. Some operational wages were a little bit higher, and operational maintenance expenses 10,000 higher for the month. Again, that's all timing stuff. When an invoice hits, so you get to the next page, page 5 is where things kind of level up and make more sense. It's through January versus through the January before. Revenue increased just under 8% for the 11 months versus last year. That's mostly the rate increase. There was some decrease in consumption. The difference obviously being some timing and with which routes were hit. The expenses were only slightly higher, 0.12%, which is pretty good. The big ones in there, admin expense increased 117. Again, this is the same stuff we've been talking about pretty much most of the year. That's really the difference between the pension contribution, the amount that was put in every month for the pension versus the prior year. Purchased water decreased about 163,000. Again, that's consistent with the consumption being down a little bit. And there was also a decrease in operating maintenance expense. About 90,000. Last year, 2022, 40 of that 90 was that satellite survey. The rest is probably just paving timing and the like. The next page, page 6 is versus the budget. Revenue is over budget, which is good. Just over 9%. Again, that's just actually just higher than the budget. We budget conservative, so should usually be over budget with revenue. We budget for the worst of times, not for the best of times. Expenses is under budget by just over 10%, which is pretty much consistent. It's been that 9-10% most of the year. The 3 largest areas in the under budget are the professional fees, water, and operational maintenance expense. Again, with the professional fees, we've had fewer legal bills this year and consulting fees in general than the prior year. And the water obviously has been decreasing. We had wet, cool summer this past year. And then the operating expense is just lower due to timing. Again, a lot of that, some of that is that satellite, well, actually, I'll disperse budget. Some of that's just some of the timing of some of the projects. Pages 7 and 9 are the dollars billed and gallons delivered. You can see the dollars billed increased 6.67%, while the gallons delivered are down almost 1%. And that's pretty much our rate increase. Our rate increase last year was 6%, I believe. So that's keeping us a little bit ahead of the game versus last year. Page 10. Actually, you know what? 8, I mean, I expect this to be consistent. This is pretty much the same as it's been. 8 out of the 11 months for this have been below the last year, same month. So consumption is just down overall for the year. Page 10 is the trust fund report. For December, this is January. For January, the debt service ratio is 6.61. It was 6.67 in December, so it's just down a little bit. And then page 11 is just a pension report through January. An increase for the month, $2,400, but it's down for the whole plan year, about $256,000. And again, the bulk of that down is we had obviously a retirement in September. The balance at the end of January in the pension fund is just over 3.4 million. We have a few more months left in that. The pension year goes till June, so. Don't anticipate too much change going to bid.
No major surprises.
No, November, December, January seem to be pretty, and even February seem to be pretty flat, so, which is consistent with what they usually look like.
Good. Any questions for Dan? Okay, we'll move on. Next item on the agenda is board member town council reports. Anybody have anything to report from their town councils? No? I do. I did touch base with the Bristol Town Council and got an email back regarding the vacancy that we have. And I got a response a few nights ago from Aaron Lay, one of our town council persons. And he said, thanks for reaching out. Next Wednesday, which would be yesterday, we'll have a list of candidates interested in the BCWA position. At that meeting, someone will likely make a motion to schedule interviews with the interested candidates. These interviews will occur during the hour prior to the next town meeting on March 27th. After we hold the interviews, we almost always make our appointment. Although there was a recent exception to the rule regarding a zoning board and the Bristol Housing Authority appointment. If they want us to expedite the interviews, I'll get in touch with them. But they talk about, they have the public meetings coming up on the budget, so they're going to be pretty book solid. So I don't think they would appreciate it if I told them that it was a top priority for us. And they thank us for all the work that we're doing. So we have that going on. The other thing I wanted to mention.
They didn't have any candidates as of Monday.
No.
I had to go in and I signed my papers for the extension. And I was there for
Maybe we have a ringer. I'm sitting back there in the back of the room.
She might be moving to Bristol, I heard.
Yeah.
Well, she lives in Bristol. She's down there on Beach Road.
I do live in Bristol.
She knows where we could dig up the skeletons.
One other thing I wanted to mention, and it's not a action item, so we don't have to have Joe, who's not here tonight, have agenda or something over me putting something on the agenda that's not here specified. I'm going to be establishing a properties committee of 3 board members, and the interest in this is growing. The primary thinking here is that we have a lot of properties that are in transition across the street, going from a operating treatment facility to buildings that are being torn down. And there's an item on the agenda which Steve will talk about later regarding one of the buildings. And we also own or maintain a lot of different properties in the area. And I think it's of value for us to have a committee to look at the properties, become familiar with the properties, and look towards the future as to what some of the properties could be used for in the future. I have no interest in selling off properties, if anybody is thinking I'm going in that direction. I'm just interested in making use of the properties as best possible. We have some that may lend themselves to being used for public purposes, and that might come out of the committee as well. So I'll be talking to 3 people, maybe more, for participation on this committee. that'll be formally announced at next month's meeting, so.
You know, I have a good question on properties. This reservoir itself, we don't own it, do we?
It's a good question.
I was always of the impression we didn't own it.
We don't own the river.
Then the question becomes, when the river is smaller, who owns the land alongside the river?
You own up to the properties, own up to like the, I'm not sure exactly the state law, but I guess the mean high tide line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in any case, we own property along the river, wherever the edge of the river is. And the property along the river right out here, is certainly, the use is changing. The next item on the agenda is a task order amendment for PAR. Steve?
Yes. So for your consideration, I have Park Corporation, who assisted us in the first phase of demolition, together an amendment for the next phase of the treatment plant demolition, which is the main building. And there's actually two separate items here for consideration. I don't know if some of you read this and said you will be surprised that, geez, he wants to like maybe look into saving one of these buildings. So the first part of it is developing the plans necessary for the demolition of the main plant, preparing a hazardous building material, abatement plan, survey, developing the contract documents, and assisting us with bidding and review of contract proposals. And then the largest portion of that $93,900 has to do with having an inspector here on site, doing the contract administration, making sure that the demo contractor is doing what he's supposed to be doing. The second phase, and we asked PAR to put together a feasibility study to look at the old station house, which is right on Child Street. This building is separated apart from the main plant. This building has like almost kind of like a little office space on one side, but probably 2/3 of it is a good size, just open space that we currently use as a workshop and storage. My thought being, well, let's have someone take a look before we actually knock this thing down. One last look to see what it would take to actually bring this, structure back to a usable, condition. They did give us a number. I think it's high. We got this a little late in the game before I wanted to get this out to at least start with the demolition piece of this, but they're looking for $66,100 to do kind of an exterior look at the building, then bring an architect in, and also an interior look, and they give us, kind of construction cost estimates as to if the authority wanted to move forward with actually rehabbing the building. Now you all can say to me, well, Steve, we just want that building down. That's fine. But I think it might be worth one last look. There could be some potential reuse of the building, and then it also, you have like a remaining remnant of what was here, remaining from the past, and you can still potentially reuse the building. So I guess what I'm asking for today is approval for at least the demo piece, to prepare those documents, move forward with the main plan for $93,900. For the second piece, I think Mike and I kind of relook at the scope of work and maybe pare this down somewhat, and kind of give us more of a preliminary overview, maybe not so in depth, and so it's not not as expensive.
Any questions?
Thoughts,
Yeah.
questions?
Motion to approve $160,000, but allow you to go back and sort of rejigger for a lower number to look at the
Just do that too.
building.
So do I have a second on that motion?
Second.
Discussion?
Yeah, if we, in the possibility that you continue with that, the small, I'll call it the smaller building.
Yes.
Is it feasible to build off of it when the other one's gone? We know we want to have some kind of a garage maintenance type facility. Is that thing structurally sound enough to build off of? And
Well, that's part of the.
That's something that we can have a look at. Yeah.
Right.
But I see it, it's gonna be, when I look through it, it's gonna, if it's feasible to continue as a small building, but I think we need to look at it, if it sits there, can you add on to it and join the two? Once the main structure's gone, can you build off of the garage and go that way and have your, instead of the, tear down and build a whole new garage system?
And my concern here with this $160,000 project was I wanted it to be divided into two projects. We know we want the 100 tasks, the first part of this, to be done because we're moving towards the demolition. The second part, I didn't think it was prudent for us to contract for $66,000 worth of work when we don't know what that building is capable of supporting. So I was asking Steve to get a proposal for an initial review of that to minimize, if they come to a conclusion that the whole building has to be torn down, well, are we contractually obligated to continue on with the work for $66,000? I would say no, but I don't want to get into that issue. And if there's things along what you're saying, well, that might not be covered by this. And if they do a preliminary evaluation of the building, a sort of a two-dimensional thing with saying what else can we put on here, that's not, I think we're at a conceptual stage in looking at what that building could be used for as opposed to giving out a whole contract at this point. So that's my thought. Doesn't have to be the final thought.
Well, what it's gonna be used for would be up to us.
Right.
But couldn't we just get a local contractor to come and say, hey, that building's structurally sound, or it's, no.
The part of it is
$60,000 for some engineers to come in
Right,
and look at it and say, oh, you gotta tear it down.
Right, and I agree with that thinking, is that we can have somebody do something, a quick and dirty type of evaluation of the building, and also do some working with staff and this new committee as to what the possibilities are for that. We want to turn it into offices? Do we want to turn it into garages? Do we want to turn it into a public meeting room? Is it going to be a building that's something that's going to be used by the community? I don't know. But I couldn't see putting out a whole big contract at this point for it without doing some initial evaluations of it at a much less cost.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna, it's kind of like, you want to kind of do this kind of sequentially, I guess, is have someone take a look at it and basically just give us, is it structurally sound, is it worth saving kind of thing. I mean, this gets into a little more detail, but I think what we're ultimately going to need to know is how much is it going to cost to bring this up to actual, usable space. Right, so I think that's why this gets into the cost that it does, because you don't want someone to come in and take a very overly conceptual look at it and say, yeah, it's structurally sound. It'd probably run you between $300,000 to $1 million. Well, that doesn't really tell us anything, right? So it's like, because we don't want to. Is it worth that much money? we don't know. You know, so we would like to get, you know, at least a good cost estimate of what it would cost the authority to put money into it. And then we make the decision, is it worth it or not?
But wouldn't that depend on what you're gonna plan to use it for?
Yes, yeah. I mean, and right now, I would look at it as potential, some additional office space and continued use as a workshop. I know we are talking a long-term plan to build a new facility. You know, but in the meantime, like, when's that gonna happen? You know, that could be years down the road. We're still gonna need, maybe we might still need that space.
So like what kind of offices? The ones that are in the present garage now?
Yeah.
My only point was that without making, we don't know what we're gonna do with that building. We don't know what an architect or an engineer will say about that building. We don't know what a space planner will say about that building. And it would seem that we could do some very preliminary work there, not asking to pull somebody out of the Bristol Phoenix want ads to come in and do an evaluation, but that this was an add-on, and PAR is looking at doing the whole thing. I don't think we're at that point yet. So my thinking was, we approved the first part, the $93,000, and then ask PAR to give us a much lesser proposal for evaluating the building at this point. And so along the lines of what you were saying, John. But that's my thinking.
The much lesser proposal would be less money?
Oh, yeah, I don't think we should be spending $66,000 or committing $66,000 or contracting with anybody for $66,000 when we don't know what we're really doing with the building. We should get some preliminary evaluation of the building done. That I think can be done quickly, thoroughly, professionally, and we can talk to people about the interior planning of the building, whether it's going to be for a garage, workspace, office space, or a combination thereof, or general purpose room that we don't even know what we might use it for at this point. I don't know. So
I think it would probably be important for, the organization to understand what they consider the highest and best use of that property to be. And that can be done in many different ways, but that would seem to be the starting point. Maybe the property shouldn't be there. Sounds as though somebody probably should give it some really in-depth thought before much of anything is done. It doesn't sound like there is a defined thought about how it should be used. So I'm just saying this because I've done a ton of work in real estate, and typically people know what their objective is, what they're going to do. It doesn't sound there's any clarity as to how that building should be used, or if it should be used. Maybe it's best not to have it there, or how that would fit into whatever the personnel on the property committee come up with. So it sort of seems that without that type of knowledge and without that type of thought, forethought, it might be premature to do little, if anything.
we have a motion on the table to do.
Right, I made a motion that gave him the flexibility to go
Right.
back and reduce it. if he-
Right, you did say.
Yeah, the RFP, its language provides exactly that, that if the scope of work changes, then the price will be changed. But if it were determined at some point, how we figure this out, that the building is not salvageable as a practical matter, is there a logic in having both torn down at the same time? And we started out, I assume, tearing down everything. So if we quickly decide this one is not salvageable, does it make more sense to have them taken down, together?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, because this work would be, putting together the the demo plan and having this building looked at, they would be done together. So we'd have to be able to make that decision before we actually,
So you want to get a
yeah,
review of whether or not the building is
Right.
usable before you
Yes.
do anything else.
right.
So under Chris's motion, he has, it's a flexible motion. And I guess the only thing that, to cover everything that we've been talking about, is the first step in that second project here, the task 200s, is to do some type of preliminary evaluation of the potential uses of the building.
But if you're gonna wait to tear them both down at the same time, then you gotta commit yourself to the 66,000 for them to tell us that it's gotta come down.
Well, it's covered in his motion, but all I'm saying is that before they start doing some real detailed engineering and such, there should be some basic evaluation of the building's structure and the use of the building. You've got to, how can the I haven't been in the building. Is it a building that can be reconfigured into several different offices, a garage? I don't know. And what's it gonna take to do that? If they tell me, if they go in there and they say, well, we've looked at this, we had a structural engineer come in with us, and we think that the roof's gotta come off of this building, and the bricks are gonna all be repointed, and we'd be better off just knocking the building down.
I agree with that. What's our projected date for tearing down the treatment plant?
I don't know that.
Probably looking at late summer, fall.
This summer. But then you'd have to expend this $66,000 to come up with the decision on this building
Well,
before
I
that.
don't think you have to spend $66,000 to come to a decision as to whether it needs to be torn down or not.
If you do, if you're gonna take them both down at the same time, you will.
I think we're thinking in terms of the rough and ready, because of task, do you even get to go? If quickly determined that it's not salvageable, then that's the end of the story.
Right. And I'm thinking that should be able to be determined within the first couple of weeks.
It would seem to me that, there's a lot of confusion as to what that building should do. And I think, as a point of clarification, there should be some understanding as to what the organization needs. And do they need some type of property there, or should it be a new property behind it or something? It just sounds a little fuzzy to me. Not that the one building shouldn't be demolished, but I think with this building, if it were refurbished, now typically expenses on something like that cost as much as a new building. And it seems premature to do much of anything until there's thought given to the highest and best use of that property for this organization. And I don't think it's been done.
Well, Steve, does this first proposal, 93,000, that's tearing down the treatment plant?
Mm-hmm.
That's excluding the building you're talking about?
No, that would be included in that.
That's included in it? Then what's the other 66?
And that's not actually tearing the building down.
No, it's
That's
just preparing
preparing the
the
plans
building.
and specs and.
Yeah, I mean, but that pertains to that building.
Right, right.
Then what's the extra $60,000 just to tell
Well,
us?
there's two tasks under that. The first task is to look at they call it the building envelope systems evaluation. And have a design meeting, get information, check the building out, check the floor plan out, prepare schematic floor plan. And that's where, what are we gonna use it for? And Steve probably would present 3 or 4 scenarios that we've talked about, is office space, workspace, maybe garage space, maybe open space, if you will. And that first task has a value on it of $36,000. I guess I'm being tight here with our money today. It just seems to me, I don't want to lock us in, and I'm not sure if we're locking us in if we go and if we enter into a contract with Paul to do the whole thing, and then we go through task 201, and we come to the conclusion, building's gotta come down, or we don't want anything to do with it. Well, then task 202 never gets done, we never spend anything, right? We have not committed ourselves to spending money that doesn't need to be spent because we don't have to go forward.
These are all just based on work hour estimates, so you're billed on, the time or actual work performed. So,
Right. But
with Director Stenny's motion, I mean, we could go back and we could, just do this in sections, so we're not committed to like, it's gonna be a $66,100 project, right? So we could have some preliminary work done.
So I did discuss with Par that exact scenario as far as moving on to task 202, and they find it completely justifiable that we may not. We may get the cost estimate associated with the first task and have sticker shock and say, we made a decision,
Okay.
there's no need to move on to that next task.
Okay, I accept that. Then similarly, in task 201, the 1 through 8 there, to me, there's always a preliminary plan that is done on these kind of things. I've been through this kind of process almost exactly a number of times, where we're all trying to envision what we want there, and we can't really see it at this point, number one. So we need some sketches to show us what the space would look like under a certain scenario. The sketches, I'm saying, not engineering drawings. And what also is you have 2 meetings in here. I can see you having much more than that with, between PAR and staff to talk about the project and the possibility of using it in different ways. I'm just trying to minimize a commitment here where we might not need the commitment. Because they could present something to us which none of the alternatives are acceptable to us. So why would we need to go to prepare schematic floor plans, exterior elevations, or other documents which are necessary to describe scope of phase 1 of the project? We don't. So even at that point, we could stop it. We just have to have in here that you're going to do something preliminary first.
I like to just I sort of personally think that an interesting route to take would be to understand exactly what type of building you want, number one. And number two, where would the best location for that building be relative to the needs of this organization? That hasn't been done, and I think it should be done. Yeah.
So the only thing I would want to add into the scope of services, and we can go with Chris's motion as is because it has flexibility, but to include some preliminary phase in there where we get some initial initial product that will help us decide what we're going to go forward with here. Because we can say, and we all do this, you look at a house and say, yeah, this is a great house, but you move in and you say nothing fits. But if you know space, it's very easy, but most people don't know space. And so you need sketches to go and show what that space, I don't even know what the size of it is. Is it a building the size of this or twice this? You can do a lot of things with this room, but you can do a lot more with twice this space. And how do you fit everything in there, and so forth. So that's all I'm asking. So I think we can all agree.
I'm confused.
And I
The one question that I have as you start, have both of these buildings been remediated for asbestos and stuff? So you're using a building that possibly has contaminants in it right now?
We performed a hazardous materials pre-demolition assessment of both buildings. Anything that was immediately friable was remediated, but it was not inclusive of every hazard identified.
I'm seeing stuff on caulking and things like that in here.
Yeah.
That's-
Is that building heated?
There's a shop heater in the open space. There's no other utilities included.
There's no water, there's no sewer.
I question you using it right now, but that's just me. We get enough problems when people get sick in different places. I don't know what we're doing with this, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I have no idea where.
Me either.
No, I think where I see it is Chris's motion, it allows flexibility to stop the project and not have a financial commitment to do work that we don't need to do, i.e. task 202, if it comes to that. Similarly, if we go back to power and say, okay, let's refine your proposal, this is at the staff level, we don't have to have it in the motion, to get some preliminary product that will help guide a decision that needs to be made. Because certainly if what we want to be able to do is advise the board that this is what we're going to do with this building, and it's going to has an estimated cost of $387,000. And then we have the discussion at that point. And then it gets refined down to the plan, down to the rest here, to work out the details.
This $66,000 primarily says you can make use of the building or you can't.
Yeah,
That's the thing that gets me. It just seems like
it's a lot of money.
a lot of money for somebody to say either the building's usable or it's not.
No, well, no, it's more than that. They'll give us everything that needs to get done and the costs associated with that.
To be done for what? For what use?
Well, and
Just for a shell that we're gonna decide what we wanna do with it after?
Yeah, right now it's office and workspace.
see, John, that was the thinking I had when I read this. I said, yeah, I'd like to get all this done, but I don't want to spend the money. I want an assessment of that property, but I don't want to spend all this money. And so you can divide this in two, because if you go do task 202, the feasibility study, the interior fit out, well, you've made that decision that this is a go project. But I want somewhere early on that we're going to be able to say, okay, we just paid you, I throw a number out there, $15,000 to come up with this conceptual plan for what could be done there. That sounds good, and your conceptual cost on this is that, okay, refine this and finish task 201, which will cost us $38,000 or something, $36,000. So.
I like the idea of a maintenance shop and offices.
Right, but we're gonna figure out if that's feasible.
Is this $66,000 gonna tell us how to do that? This is gonna be laid out here, these are gonna be offices, they're gonna design it?
He would make.
Are they gonna design it? They gonna do all that? That's all this is?
They're not gonna, no,
This
the
is
full
not a
design,
design.
no.
They're just gonna tell us whether we can use it or not.
Well, it'll tell you how much it's gonna cost you to get to that point.
Again,
We can do that in-house. We did most all this building in-house. Our own people did most of the work in here.
but again, we need something basic to start out with to guide us, staff and board, to say, this is what can be done. This is, I'm not looking for a model to be developed, just as sketches. I've seen architects and space planners do this quickly and simply, and change them quickly and simply, without getting into detailed scale drawings, addressing every little detail. And Because this only gets us to the point where, okay, now prepare the plans and specs to build the building.
Now, I agree with you 100%, but it just, to me, it just seems like a lot of money for somebody to tell us, yes, you
It
can
is.
get that point.
It is, and that's what,
all.
why we are going with it. The proposal now.
I'm gonna
is-
vote for it anyway, but it just
The
seems like a lot of money.
The proposal is,
Democrats are all in like,
the motion is,
Just say, executive director, give us a preliminary assessment, don't spend a lot of money. And bring it
Well,
back.
I'm just leery of engineers always tacking extra.
yeah,
I have no problem with the work that PAR has done for us either, but it just seems to me that comes up all the time. Let's add another 30,000 for this. or
And as an
another 20 for
engineer,
that.
I agree with the concern, but I've worked with space planners and architects and engineers, and I know in building, there's a lot of discussion and a lot of decisions that have to be made early on before you really have a project. And that's all I'm asking is let's do something here where bring in the experts, get their advice on what can be done here, given that these ideas that we have, what can we accommodate in this building for offices, workshop, whatever, ping pong, game room, whatever.
Mr. Chairman, if we had a long-term plan, that would be helpful. I don't know if we did, especially in the area of real estate.
Well, that's, the properties committee is gonna look at all of the properties that we have.
So it just seems not wise to move when the organization may not know what their needs are officially. We talk office space, and I say to myself, buy office space there, why not here, where most of the office people are, that type of thing.
That may be
enough thought has been given to it.
over-glamorization of the word office space for this space out there. It may be a meeting room, a shift change meeting room, or whatever you want to call it.
I'm just suggesting that there should be some tie-in, hopefully, with the plan that the organization has, and we don't seem to have a plan until the committee that you suggested we create.
No, that would be ideal, but on the other hand, I don't want to stop anything that's moving forward too, so.
Right.
The other option is knock it down.
Mr. Chairman, move the question.
Okay. All in favor of the motion as stated and understood?
I understand what you mean, so we won't blow through that.
All in favor of the motion as stated and understood to do the discussion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It's unanimous.
yeah, I don't understand it, and I don't.
Okay.
Just remember that
Yeah.
engineer fee when one of our ratepayers comes in and asks for $200 to pay pumping their cellar because they had a leak. And we say, oh, we can't do that.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is vehicle purchase. Steve?
No, there's another one, another Ford.
I think they should get a Toyota.
That might be all. Another Ford, my goodness.
Sorry, Mr. Director Janetta. So I'm looking to purchase another Ford
Yes, I see that.
F-450 utility truck with a crane winch on there. We did get 3 pricing. All vendors are pre-qualified on the master price agreement. And the lowest price came in from Jack Madden Ford at $110,070. We're asking for a 10% contingency only because we're not sure on delivery and if any items or equipment costs have slight increases by the time the truck is actually delivered for a total not to exceed value of $121,000.
Motion to approve, $121,000.
Do you have a second on the motion?
Second.
Any discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
The boom, this is for like pulling a pump out of something with the boom and stuff.
Yeah, it's to manage anything we have to lift in and out of the truck, a trailer, mostly not to, have people lifting things that shouldn't be lifting.
But it's, I look at it from the size of the boom relative to access.
That's not the actual crane. That one's, this vehicle is a little bit oversized of what we would get. It would be similar to the cranes that are on the utility trucks now that you see.
And which is sufficient to access inside any building to lift a pump and pull it out, or whatever you would.
Inside the buildings?
Well, how do you jack them out and so on and so forth?
Yeah, we use a lot of engine hoists in buildings and dolly cranes, but we use these for hydrants, picking valves.
Those are infield work.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Couple of questions. What do we do with the old vehicle that you're replacing? Is it a trade-in, or do we continue to use it?
We're gonna continue to use it because sometimes we do negotiate trades when we know like a tighter window. But because this is such a long lead, it's hard to quantify the trade now in time for the procurement, but we will work a disposal option as delivery approaches.
Did they all have the same lead time?
Yes, it's pretty much a standard offering through the manufacturer right now. So it'll be an order, so it's hard to pin it down.
And I know you're going through the state master price agreement, and I'm not remembering how all that works, but the contingency that you have here, is that to cover if the price goes up?
Yes, not so much on the vehicle. The vehicle we should be covered, it's the upfitting. The upfitting is all aftermarket stuff. Things like the crane, I forget the lead time, but it was in and around 20 weeks just for the crane.
So you don't know that pricing beforehand though, then I guess?
We have it now. We have it pinned down right now, but if anything happens in the interim, this would prevent us to come back to you and
So
still build the vehicle.
So was the $110,000 with all the equipment added on?
Yes.
Okay, and it's just in case the price
Just
is...
a contingency, just in case.
Okay. And when this goes out to bid this way, that, and that contingency gets added, is it understood by the bidders that we would be carrying a contingency?
No, they don't know. They're not aware. We issue a PO and the amount that they quote. The contingency is just a way for us to manage any overage.
Yeah, okay, no, I'm just wondering, from our viewpoint, how do we control that? But I guess there is no controlling a future price that you don't know about, so.
Sometimes they come to us with overages. Same thing with our utility contracts.
Okay.
And sometimes we don't. We're actually under.
So the prices that you said you have now, that's included in the 110?
Yes, the 110 is.
Okay, all right, okay.
Does that come with a full tank of gas?
Enough to get you here. That's what they give you.
Okay.
A year's supply.
Any other
You
questions?
should, you think, yeah, 10,000, right?
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? You need your parking validated. You all in favor?
Aye. It just hurts me, aye.
Anyone opposed? It's unanimous.
How many vehicles do we have now, just total?
We have, so including everything, it's 21, 22, and that includes the backhoes and the trucks.
As bad as the police department, one for every person.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the stuff does go down, especially on the backhoes, so we need a little bit of redundancy there. And that F-550 that we just took delivery on is filling that gap a little bit.
Okay, going on to the next item is Personnel Committee Executive Director Annual Goals Discussion. John, that's you.
Personnel committee met earlier at 4:30. And because
Juan had so many additional items to put on the goals list, I've asked Juan to
Okay.
repeat what the committee voted on.
Thank you. But I'll add that Steve also added some.
He has one item.
So, anyway, and we all agreed on this. And what I proposed is included in a email that I had sent to Steve earlier today. And we had met on Tuesday of this week also and chatted about the goals. There was a minor revision in the opening a line that he had, and that's a minor thing. But moving on number 4, and what you'll see in all of them is I'm trying to memorialize public information and our commitment to public information and assistance throughout all of these. So Steve rightfully notes the lead service line replacement program as being a goal. Since this is something where the agency is going to be working with the customers closely, and hopefully the customers will be working with us to get financing and understanding the need to get this done throughout the system. I added in that this goal includes the replacement of all BCWA-owned service lines and appurtenances. In addition, the development and implementation for financing options for homeowners and distributable online and hard copy public information, as well as groups or individual property owner meetings. And just pointing out that we're going to do our best to get information out to the customers and work with them as much as we can. And that fits in with the program that was outlined by Steve at the last meeting or the meeting before, so it's not really new ground. The next one is where I was talking about earlier that I'll be appointing a properties committee, is tying this in with the staff is and Steve's goals is to provide stewardship support and guidance to a new board members properties committee will be created with the purpose of assessing existing BCWA properties present and possible future BCWA in public use. Of particular interest is currently underused lands, existing buildings, and watershed properties in transition. Reuse, re-landscaping, and public use where appropriate will be considered by the committee. So it sort of gives a outline of what the committee will be looking into as well. 6 is, and this is, it says continue. So it's not new, it's continue to support and where possible expand public information and coordination. And I want to emphasize that I'm not saying that we don't do this now, we do an excellent job of this. And I've given the example of a number of times I've seen little fires starting to be ignited online about activities we may or may not be doing. And it was as simple as me saying, have you gone to the Bristol County Water Authority's website? If you do, you can find out more about the project. And after I do that, I don't see anything else out there on it. So the information exists, and I think we do a great job at doing that. I'm just saying, as a goal, continue to do that. The last one is working with the chairman to find and implement a board member educational program. I'm not trying to insult anybody here on the board about your education. I'm just saying that we need to learn more about our operations and our responsibilities here and how we should be handling things. And I don't think we're missing anything at this point. And that these programs be done like on a quarterly basis when possible, possibly weather dependent, tours of projects and training sessions, for example, on board member responsibility, ethics, technology, new programs, public issues. And if you noticed, there's a typo at the end there. I did not mean pubic issues, so don't go and threaten me with some type of sexual harassment thing. But anyway, what is one of the things here that I got a lot of feedback from each of you, each of the board members, about the short little visit to the upper dam and seeing what was going on there. Everybody enjoyed that, understood the project much better after seeing that. And so I think what I'm saying here is, let's do that on a quarterly basis. And if it's not going out to see a project, it could be updating us on our responsibility in filing ethics commission paperwork, or it might be learning more about how open meetings are supposed to be conducted and so forth. And these used to be done through the Office of Attorney General. And I don't know, they may still be done, and maybe that's something, I talked to briefly with Joe, our attorney, about that, and he thinks they may be still being done, so. Then, in our discussion in the Personnel Committee, Steve added an additional goal, and that was to close out the mega projects, which I think we all agree quickly that it's been a big mountain. We've gotten over the mountain, now we're finding it's down to 10. So there's a few left, and it'd be great to finish that. I know we'll do that, that's an easy one. And then Steve also wanted added to the first one on the list here, is with all of the news regarding the Washington Bridge and construction projects in general, and cost overruns and so forth, is to add into that first one, control project costs. And we can slip that in there appropriately. So that's what was recommended from the, approved by the Personnel Committee and recommended to the
I
board.
just wanted to mention that was voted on and recommended to adopt these plans, so I'd like to move the adoption of these items.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Never get a vote, Steve. No. Thank you. Unanimous.
Will we get a document putting these together in a appearance fashion
Yeah.
for the record?
We will.
What was that, Tom?
Once this together,
You've been pasted here and there, so I think just for the record, we should have.
Property spell check.
yeah, spell checks.
Oh, boy.
That one always.
Yeah, well, these will be reported on a monthly basis.
Yeah, that's included in the monthly report.
Okay.
My girls must be sending out a message. Keep all answering.
The next item on the agenda is.
Quarterly write-offs?
Quarterly write-offs.
Motion to be accepted.
Motion made.
Second?
Second. Any discussion? It's an excellent report as always. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay. Next is going into executive session to talk about collective bargaining pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 4246-582.
So moved.
Second. All in favor? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. It's unanimous. We're in executive session.
Makes you sweat all that morning.
Ceremonial fire
If what we were reviewing is now part of the confidential record, what do we have on the record that we're going to be voting on now? What's it? Public?
We're going to be, there'll be a motion to accept the collective bargaining.
But how do we know what that is? It's blocked out.
We have to seal the minutes first.
Okay. But he
We
has a
have
good
a
point.
motion and a second on that.
Okay. Can I have a motion to seal the minutes of the executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, now we want to,
Now we want Bob's motion.
Approve something.
we want to approve the contract, we want to consider the contract agreement that we discussed in executive session.
That's the motion to accept the proposed agreement, union agreement.
Okay, so do we have a motion to approve it? Is that your motion?
That's my motion. I second.
Do we have a second?
Yes.
Second. All those in favor of the contract agreement as presented in the executive session, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say no. The ayes are above the noes.
No, we got a few.
It's approved. And the next scheduled meeting is in the spring of 2024. It's on March 28th. Spring dress is required.
You're not gonna wear a dress, are you? Want to wear a dress?
There'll be a discussion about the dress code.
We can do a tour, we can do a tour of this building as part of the educational.
There you go.
Next spring?
Next meeting, in the spring. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. I was gonna keep you hanging on.